Welcome to Dance to Heal. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how dance and movement can bring healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that movement was vital to my recovery. I created Dance to Heal Wellness and also authored the best-selling book, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new techniques to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Sarah Alysse is a corporate stress management consultant that helps companies and individuals cultivate a low-stress environment so that their employees can be happier, healthier, and work productively. She's the CEO of Live Well Enhance You, LLC, and founder of the Soul System, which formed out of a need for her clients to find balance in their lives. She utilizes her BFA musical theater performance background to coach others how to be confident and understand the connection between the brain and body. And so without further ado, I am so excited that you are here today, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jenny, for having me. It means a lot.
I'm still excited, audience, that Sarah's here today. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see my face go blank, like I'm just so excited about this moment. All right, let's get back to business. Please just tell us about what this amazing soul system is.
Yeah, so I decided to create a course that was essentially for people that were looking to improve their mental, their physical, and spiritual well-being. For many years, I had suffered from imposter syndrome and feeling like I'm not good enough, and all the things that happen, especially in your 20s. And as I was going like through my late 20s, my dad got really sick, and I really had to start asking myself, like, what do I need? Because I needed to handle everything with my dad, make sure my mom was doing okay, because she was the main caregiver. Mm-hmm. And so I had to take it upon myself to start asking myself hard questions. And that was the first idea of Lucian coming to light. And then over time, it's just developed into an all-encompassing program where you're enhancing your soulful mind, your soulful body, and your soulful spirit.
I think that's pivotal these days. It used to be very much recently, I guess before the panini, I call the pandemic the panini, Sarah. Before that, right, there's this huge thing about mindset. And I saw a post on IG the other day that talked about how it has to be a combination of top down and bottom up, right? Because getting better over what's got us stuck isn't just a simple, I'm going to fix it in your brain. There has to be a release through the body.
Yep.
Yeah. Will you take us through kind of like what happens? Let's say like me, Jenny, audience, I'm going to take this for you. If I were to sign up and work with you, Sarah, what would we start with?
Yeah. So I love starting with things that are tangible for people, because when I was little, like I was a dancer. I'm like you, like I love to move. I just love to be around people. I love to just kind of get in the thick of it. And that is how I learned best. So I started with a simple practice, which was finding your sanctuary space. And in this sanctuary space, you could do anything. Like you don't just have to meditate. That's the standard. You could create something, whether that is knitting a sweater or creating a masterpiece, paint beautiful production of a song, like whatever you wanted. Just have this space for you, and making it something in the corner of your room just so it's accessible, or maybe it has to be separated from everyone else. So that was the very first thing that I started doing with myself, was create a space where I could just chill, go to whenever I was feeling stressed. And if it wasn't accessible for me, like let's say I was traveling, I would create this mental oasis where I could like zone into a sacred spot where I could feel the sanctuary energy that I have at home, but with me when I travel too.
That's an excellent point, Sarah. I find it's, even though it makes common sense, it's actually not often practiced that we as women or feminine identifying peoples, we don't give ourselves permission to have our own space, even in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new one. I mean, I just love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have cats, so my space is owned by all my cats. Even if I want to
Mm-hmm.
hide, they're outside banging on the door, you know? I mean, what is a great way for someone to carve out that space? Let's say if you have small children or you're in a tight space. Some people that I work with have roommates. They really don't have that place for them. How would
Yeah.
one person go about that first step?
Well, right now I'm in my baby room and it's also my workspace because I wanted this to be an outlet for me to play with the baby and also for her to experience what I do, as silly as that might sound. But in the corner of my room, there is a foam roller, a yoga mat. I have these books behind me that I can go to as resources, but at the bottom shelves, it's all like baby books. So I have essentially like made space for her, and there's dolls in the corner of the room, like from my childhood, that I'm
Mhm.
passing on to her. So I just wanted to find a space, even though it's going to be a crazy one with Babe. I still make sure that there's things that people know and that she'll know too. Oh, that's mommy's things, you know, and just being able to share that with them and show them too. If you have kids at home, showing them what you're doing, they're going to probably be on board and want to join with you and do yoga. Your roommates, they might even want to journal with you on your cushion, your meditation cushion, if that's something you like to have in your little area. So there's so many ways to also get people on board with you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, I'm a mom of 25-year-old twins, and I was the old school generation that wishes I had had this acknowledgement. Because back then it was, or either you went to back to work and put your kids in daycare, which a lot of my children ran out of play dates
Mm.
soon, like around 3, everybody had either gone back to work and hired a nanny. I was in the very affluent areas of Great Neck, Long Island, and or they had enrolled them in preschool at 3.
Yeah.
So my kids ran out of play dates and I became their primary play date. So it was really hard to carve out space. And I think the only regret I ever really had was that I never modeled for them mommy's time,
Mm.
mommy's moments, mommy's things. I never did that. There was never a delineation. And I think this current time, moms, dads too, right? Any type of caretaker, it is okay to give yourself that permission. I was really just worried subconsciously about like who could I trust with my babies? There's got to
Right.
be a release of that a little bit, right? Because a mom or a caretaker, you really need to make time to feel you're well. Everybody's really talking about that now, Sarah, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of it is just talk. No one's actually really doing it, are they?
No, they're not. But there's also a sense like this mom guilt's going on. I can't do that because if I do that, that means, I'm taking time away from them, or maybe they won't love me as much, or what will other people think if I'm going and getting my nails done for an hour just once a month? Like there's all these trickling down feelings and beliefs that happen because of what we've been told most of our lives. And I think that's the sad part right now. And it's trying to break those conditions and habits.
Yes, yes. I love when you said if you were to do a master class, you would call it Fall in Love with Your Soul.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that because I really think a lot of times, yes, even my approach is called the outside in, and I use dance to get people to be more present. It's
Yeah.
ultimately, right, to connect with our own souls, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, it really is, Jenny. And I was just thinking about the very first time that I moved downtown, and I was going from a smaller town in Wisconsin to big Chicago for college. And when I was there, I was so insanely nervous because I didn't know anybody. This was out of my element. There were so many talented performers. And how was I going to stick out from the crowd? And all these ideas were popping in my head. And when I started to feel more comfortable in my skin, I started to kind of fall in love with the person I was becoming because I was taking more risks since I didn't know a lot of those people. I was being more myself because this was a new environment and I wasn't afraid because everyone else was afraid. So we were all fearful of the same thing and just experiencing something larger than what I was used to really made me start to fall in love with like who I was. And I think that was the first instance of identifying, okay, this my soul like needs a lot of love and self-care, and I have to be willing to tap in and ask it what's going on when I'm feeling a little off.
Absolutely. That really definitely resonates in me. I grew up not really being allowed to focus as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Members, my YouTube audience, you can see I'm Asian presenting, right? But you would know that from my voice and my official Jenny C. Cohen name. I was raised very Asian, meaning, there's always community first before the individual. It's shifted now. It was not that way when I was a child. So I never had it modeled for me by my own mother. She was always throwing herself on the fire so everybody else could thrive because that's the way she was raised. She came from a family of 9 children. She was the fourth daughter, and she was expected to raise her 5 brothers. She didn't get to go to school until she left her farm and went to Taipei and earned a living to put herself through school.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of our audiences, we are wanting to acknowledge your different experiences with that. We come from different cultures, different backgrounds. It plays an integral part to even how audience you are hearing or seeing what Sarah and I are saying, if that makes any sense, right? Because Sarah and I, we know each other from an amazing mastermind. And one of our mentors talks a lot about being willing to be seen. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, like, I just had a client where I was doing an NLP thing with her for a few hours, and she said to me, I just don't want to be seen anymore. Because she's very popular in her work spaces. And by the time we were done with the session, it wasn't that she didn't want to be seen. She didn't feel it was trustworthy to be perceived. She felt judged. She felt like people didn't accept her for who she was. And I
Mm-hmm.
really love you your idea, Sarah, about falling in love with your soul, because some people, they just glow, right? There's a light inside of them that shines from the inside out. Before we get to that, folks, sometimes we have to be able to look inside a mirror and really see ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
right, Sarah? Like,
Yeah.
before I started really recovering post cancer, I was a belly dancer. So I was dressed up to the nines, hair, makeup, lashes, costuming, and I would look in the mirror and only see the makeup. I couldn't even see myself,
Mm.
right? And a lot of audience people and even people around us, Sarah, do they really see themselves when they look in the mirror?
So interesting that you bring this up because I've been rereading The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins.
Hmm.
And something I was noticing was as I developed, as I had a baby grow within me, like I noticed that I had these developing thoughts brewing in my head. Like all of a sudden, you're not pretty, you're getting big, you've been a fitness professional, like you should still know what you're doing. Like you shouldn't, there were horrible things that kept trickling in. So I had to go back to that high five book and kind of start giving myself more high fives and saying right afterwards, I love you, because my soul was saying, you really need to start hearing these positive affirmations again, because all that's not true. And I do feel that sometimes we look in the mirror and we just like, we don't know who that person is anymore because we're always judging. So even if you're like ignoring your mirror, it's very important to go back and get in touch, see the person there, know that it's not just a pretty face. You're so much more than that. And that light that you were talking about inside will come out more frequently.
I love that. I really love that. I think there needs to be way more many reminders that we are more than the exterior shell, even though in every culture there is a reward for perception of beauty. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the old Seinfeld episodes when Elaine didn't know what to do about her friend who had what she called the ugly baby.
That's right.
The whole thing. Okay, so we've aged ourselves with this one. How there's just a comedian had a show where one of the characters, my wonderful audience, she had an acquaintance that had a baby that was just to her idea just not very pleasing to the eye, right? And then she had to make up lies about how she thought the baby was cute. And here's the thing, it's like the reality of it is we all have moments where we wouldn't want to look at ourselves. When I first wake up in the morning, and I'm wiping the drool off of my face and I don't have my eyelashes on, and I live in a very dry environment, so I got to put back my eye creams because my eyeballs have like dried up and shriveled in my head. We're not talking about those times to be perceived. I think when any person is coming from a centered place, meaning we've taken the time for self-care. We kind of know where we're coming from. Then it's really easy to be perceived because we know where we're coming from. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
I had done I have a membership in a speaking program where there is a personal development portion of it. And there was a situation that happened where when I shared it with my group, one of my members said, well, if you really meant it for charity, you wouldn't talk about it. And it was really interesting because I was like, oh, I wasn't telling you this for you to acknowledge what a great job I did. I was telling you this because I thought it would help our group. So it was really interesting, that perspective. That member was very deeply Christian, and that's a highly ingrained theory, way of life. Like if you do things for charity, you don't talk about it.
And talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my thing is, even now, rest has a form of resistance. I talk about it.
Yeah. You should. I mean, again, same school of thought, I guess, and everyone comes up with a different background and definitely should honor it. But also, hopefully, her perspective was open too.
You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? And I'm not equating that person to a horse.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. My point is just like, if I am not coming from a centered place, I will take umbrage at what other people say about what they perceive me to be. If I'm coming from a centered place, similar to my other client that I first brought up, she doesn't care what people perceives because she really knows where she's coming from. And I know for sure I did not model that for my kids when they were much younger. And I kind of wish I had done that. I was still finding myself. I didn't grow a backbone until I had babies. I used to get pushed around like by my mother-in-law and everybody else. But once I got pregnant and my babies came along, I suddenly found it really easy to set boundaries.
Yeah. Is that funny how that works? I have a lot of clients. I feel like as soon as they have had a baby, they're like, you know what? No, this is, it's also, I think, like that whole like protective mother thing, and that gives you the courage to take those steps forward.
Yes, yes. And being a mom isn't everything. I know there are a lot of people out in this world who prefer to be child free.
Yeah.
And I say thank you for saving your money. Kids are expensive. Never tell
They
you.
are.
Really, there should be a small print like, you're never going to go to the bathroom alone ever again. Like that child is with you until they move out. Like, it doesn't really matter what age. I do know though that it's been a wonderful time to be a parent at the same time. You've got to find audience, something that's going to motivate you to take care of yourself. Because, a lot of us, we start off in the new year. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to be eating healthy. And then by February, March, we've fallen off of that. My goal towards being more present only shifted because I had to do that to keep my child safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What are some suggestions, Sarah, that we could give to our audience about how to be motivated for that?
Motivated for the time, maybe like 4 months down the line after New Year's, or motivated as a parent. I just want to make sure then
I'm doubling back to
doubling down.
doubling back to your whole approach when someone first works with you.
Okay.
Right? And the motivation to be consistent and finding time and space for self, which is totally key. Sarah, I mean, like most of us are much more influenced by other people around us, the ads on social media.
Yep.
So how do we stay true to ourselves with that long term?
Yeah. Well, as cheesy as it sounds, is like falling back in love with your soul again and asking yourselves the questions like, what does my brain need? What does my body need? What does my soul need? And really not just on a superficial level, like, oh, I need to work out more because I want to feel better. Like, let's dig into the why you want to feel better. Is it so that you can get on the ground and play with your kids? Is it so that you have more energy to do your passion project? Understanding why you want to do the work is actually going to give you better results in the long run. So then you can make those habitual changes in your life and actually make them sustainable.
Ooh, I'm sorry about that little ding from my email. That actually, I felt like it emphasized your point, Sarah.
It did.
And I also want to reiterate, sometimes our goals will shift because we're growing. And we want to give ourselves grace for that. I have an exercise that one of my energy mentors does once every few months where you're supposed to do this exercise, right? You write out your ideal day, right? And I remember, how do you do that? Like, I don't even know what to do. Every day is different for me because I'm a mom, blah, 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 right? And then,
exactly.
right?
That's where our head goes. Yeah.
That's where my head goes. And I noticed that my ideal day actually shifted when I was doing it regularly. It shifted to something completely different from what I started with 6 months later, a year later, a year and a half later. And I love that because what may serve you folks from initial quiet time for yourself in a corner may eventually become an entire room when you have that space. Right, Sarah?
Yep. And when you have that time as well, that time becomes more like when you start to, what you were talking about with people seeing ads all the time, and there's all these societal pressures on things and items. But what happens is if you start to unplug from those and get your brain away from it, all of a sudden you're going to have all this free time that you're not going to know what to do with. And that time is going to go into things that are really going to nourish your soul.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So speaking of nourishing your soul, folks, Sarah has a gift for you that we're going to include in the description of this episode, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on the YouTube video. It's going to be under www.livesenhanceyou.com/mini, what is that? Dash?
Yeah.
Mini dash course.
Mm-hmm.
What can they expect when they go to that?
Yeah. So I love to make things, again, tangible, easy action steps people can do. And as soon as you click it, it is basically a 5-day stress management challenge for you. And it will teach you, give you the practices that you need to start that journey with yourself, to reduce some of those stressors that keep popping up in your everyday life. So it's one of my favorites, and it's a quick, easy way to start.
Oh, I love that. I love that. All right, audience, you're going to go to that website. And also don't forget to grab your gift from me under danceandheal.com. You get a free cardio course and a myofascial release course from me. Do both, folks, because there's never one way to get in touch with yourself, right? And be able to be perceived and do self-care. Sarah, thank you so much for coming. You're going to have to come back, okay?
Yeah, I would love to. It was so good seeing you, and thank you for having me. It really means a lot.
Thank you for coming, audience. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening to Dance to Heal with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of recovery through movement and learn more ways that you can move your body. To work with me and continue your journey, visit outsideinrecovery.com. Are you ready to move?